Welcome to the Fall 2020 Ladies Big Book Study Recording Series. My name is Kimberly and I am a recovered alcoholic. I am the facilitator of a tri-weekly Big Book Study for ladies only, and we record each session so we can share the knowledge along with you. What we do is we read the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous line by line. We pause on each page and have discussion time to share our experience, our strength, and our hope on each page. You are more than welcome to follow along in this series and do the work of the steps of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you do need support at any time, please reach out to me in the Contact Us area of my YouTube channel, and we're happy to provide you with support. The online recordings are open to men and women. Do not be discouraged, gentlemen. Our ladies' point of view may offer you a different perspective. So welcome. I hope you enjoy. All right, ladies, we're continuing on in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, page 78. Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors. Telling them what we are trying to do, we make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyways, whether we think so or not, nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors no matter how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. So there's all sorts of different levels of creditors here we're going to talk about. Of course, there may be our family members that we've either borrowed money from or stolen money from or pilfered money from. Who knows the situation? So we've got the family members. We've got friends, neighbors, babysitters, possibly drug dealers that we owe money to. And that's the next little category. And then, of course, there's the creditors, which are corporations, institutions, businesses that we might owe money to. We approach them all pretty much the same way. We want to set these matters straight and pay back the money we owe. There's lots of variables here. Tons. There's millions of alcoholics and there's millions of financial variables. I can only speak of my personal situation, and there's a bunch, right? So obviously I have those corporate debts where you owe for unpaid loans, parking tickets, utility bills that have gone to collections, stuff like that. Really great recommendation is make a friend with your banker. So pride kept me from doing this for a long time. Everything's fine here. Everything's fine here. They know it's not fine. And so finally, one day, my account was so overdrawn, both from my alcoholism and from my divorce. And I just was at my wit's end, and I broke down crying in the bank. My account was overdrawn. There was NSF fees from checks bouncing to my utilities. And I just started to cry. And the bank teller, who was the customer service manager, pulled me in her office and she said, "What's going on?" I said, "I just got sober. I'm in a divorce. I'm trying to do the right thing and everything is a mess." And she's like, "Yep, you're not the first. You're not the last. How can I help?" And I worked with this woman for over a year, and she printed out my credit report. She circled the ones I needed to pay first. She helped me navigate that process. And I got my corporate stuff paid, and I got my finances in order, and she understood what I was going through. They're not surprised. They see the bank statement. They see you coming in frazzled. They see you withdrawing $40 at 10 o'clock at night. They're not stupid. They know that you've got something going on before you say it. And they just wish to be helpful. Nowadays, there's credit companies that can help you. I frown against those because they're trying to profit off your mistakes. There are people who do it for free. Usually people like me who are recovering alcoholics who want to give back the knowledge they've learned, right? I have an accounting background. I was a bookkeeper corporately for years. My personal books were a mess, but my corporate books at work were clean as pie. I was a forensic accountant. It was my job to find problems, but I couldn't pay my own bills because I was buying alcohol and drugs. So there's always people that help. There's always someone willing to share their expertise. And the number one person to go to is your bank. There's financial advisors in the bank that will print out your credit report and help you navigate what you need to pay right away, what you don't need to pay because of corporate write-offs. When it comes to family, you might not know how much you owe. We still have to make it right. So, maybe you kept borrowing money from mom or dad. Maybe you're borrowing against your inheritance. There's so many different variables. Sit down with them. Humbly say, I know I owe you money. I don't know how much. Can we work something out that's reasonable for all of us? Please try to not put yourself in a situation where you're going to get taken advantage of. Because there may be a person that you owe money to that's not well, that you think a ballpark figure is $800, and you go to them and they're like, yeah, you owe me money. You don't know how much? $5,000. We want to make sure we're getting ourselves into a reasonable conversation with people who are reasonable. We don't approach a sick person and say, hey, I know I owe you money. They're going to inflate it. They're going to screw you over. They're going to hold it over your head. They're going to do all kinds of awful things. So same thing applies here. We want to walk with caution. But if you don't know how much it is and the person's a reasonable person, you sit down and you go, hey, Mom, I know I owe you money for all my years in my active addiction. Can we maybe figure out something? And she'll say, usually moms will say, it's okay, sweetie, I love you. No, Mom, I really want to make it right. And sit down and figure something out. Now with friends, with neighbors, with babysitters, if you can find them and you know how much you owe them, please go offer them the money. I had one that I forgot, college roommate. I owed her $1,000. She popped up 20 years later on my Facebook, and I'm like, I owe that girl money for a car rental that I didn't pay my half of. And I messaged her on Messenger, and I simply said, hey, blah, 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 started the conversation up again. And I said, what's your email? I e-transferred it. I didn't ask her ahead of time. I didn't let her know it was coming. I just asked in a conversation for her email. And I sent her an email transfer. I then sent her an explanation why. So she didn't have the opportunity to say no and don't worry about it because I'm an alcoholic. I would say take that as a run and hide. I just sent it to her. I said, I never paid you back for that car rental back when we were 21. I just e-transferred you the money. The password is this. She emailed back. She was a teacher. She wasn't working. She was out of money. That saved her ass that day. That's how God works. I was ready to make the amends and she needed that money. And when you hear people say they get money poof out of nowhere, that's the kind of shit that happens when you make your amends. There's also creative ways we need to make amends. I know there's people that I will never find that I need to pay back. I have 20-some years of drinking and being irresponsible and not such a nice person. So I pay that back universally. I fill up my car with gas. I pay for insurance. I drive people to meetings. I buy coffee for newcomers. I pay for newcomers' dinners at fellowship. I have a really big amends that I made financially to the universe that very few people know. I owe money to the universe, and I pay it back however I can. If you've stolen from grocery stores, you want to make it right somehow. Pop an extra $20 in their little bucket for their charity. Give back without taking is the only thing that is the requirement here. There's like so many twists and turns and crannies on this one. No two situations are ever going to be the same, but just make it right between you and God. So that, when and if you have to face your maker, he's not going to be like, remember that guy you stole $5,000? And you're like, well, I thought I was okay on that one. If you can like say, yeah, I thought I was okay on that one to God, then you're okay. But there's none that I'm going to be okay with. Drug dealers, we don't pay back drug dealers unless there's a threat of physical harm to you. We don't pay back drug dealers. You can donate that money to a recovery charity. I have one that I'm working with. So if anybody wants to make a financial amends, you can buy Toys for Tots. There's so many creative ways, but we don't do anything that's going to facilitate harm to ourselves or facilitate the harm continuing to others. If I pay my drug dealer $100, guess what he's going to do with that money? Buy more drugs and sell more drugs to more people. I can't be involved in that. That's not a spiritual way of living. And if I ever bumped into him and he says, hey, remember that $100? I'm like, yeah, during my financial amends, I donated $100 in your name to a recovery charity. And I got the balls to say that. Right? And what's he going to say back? Whoa, good for you. I've run into my drug dealers in recovery. I sponsor one of my former drug dealers. Like, they actually are human and want the best for us too. They lost a good customer, but Lois.
Yes, my name's Lois. I'm an alcoholic. And I had to make amends to my brother, and like you said, you thought maybe they'd say, oh, don't worry about it. He tallied it up and he gave me an amount. So I went to my sponsor because I didn't have it right at that time. And I went to my sponsor and she said, well, send him what you can and don't just send the money, send a note with it. And I did that, and it took me quite a while. And when I was done, he said, I know you're done with the amends, but don't stop sending the notes. So he was really happy that we sort of got, it wasn't anything that was between us anymore. I could hold my head up high with my brother again. And I also do universal amends, but I do them through my church. When there's, some project going on, I make sure that I put into it because I did steal from a lot of different places. So like you said, I put it back out into the universe. And when there's a need and I know about it, I just make sure that I'm part of it. So thanks for letting me share.
Absolutely. And another thing we were was time sucks. How many times did we take people hostage and tell them all our troubles on repeat? So when another alcoholic calls you and they're in their first days of recovery and you really don't want to hear their bullshit, listen to it. You were a time thief for years, stealing time from other people. Let this newcomer steal 15 minutes from your time. Don't give them 2 hours because it's not doing them any benefit. But listen. Don't be too busy for someone else because we accosted so many people in our alcoholism and we told them the same stories on repeat. Anybody else? Financial amends? This one usually has tons of questions. Guess I'm just the most horrible one that ripped everybody off. Leslie. Leslie, you're unmuted. Oh, you were.
My brother, who was heavy into his addiction, needed money to go here, needed money to go to work up in Fort Mac, and could I spot him a couple $100, and I did, and I gave it without thinking I was ever going to get it back. And I never got it back, and it's all right, But financial amends, it actually occurred to me a couple of weeks ago. I think in one of your, I was going to say one of your shows, one of the, where I had, I owe a lady for some tape, and I got to give her some more money for some crayons that I bought at a garage sale, and it's been bugging me ever since I helped her with this garage sale, and I probably sold over, I think it was over $1,000 for her, and she had blank checks and personal information that was thrown in with all. It would have been a con artist's dream to come across that garage sale, but I pulled all that away. I says, burn this, get rid of it. This is personal information. You don't want people getting that information. And she was, she thanked me for it. But then at the same time, I took tape, and I didn't pay her the proper amount for it. So he who is without sin cast the first stone. I mean, sin is sin. It doesn't matter if you rip off an old lady's checking account, or if you take some tape, or whatever, right? So I got to make that right. So thanks for letting me share.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I think that's why I was such a good forensic accountant, because I was such a mess. I knew what to look for. But yeah, when it comes to, and I'm going to just say this default because it came up, I don't lend money to anybody in recovery. Nobody. Not like, can I get $20? I get my check Friday. I need cigarettes. No, I have a pack of cigarettes normal time when I'm going to in-person meeting. I have a pack of cigarettes in my car. Summer typically sells them to people for $5. I give them away for $5 each. Summer's a little hustler. But I don't lend money to anybody at all. Why? Because it's going to get you a resentment. It's going to get me a big, huge one. If anything, I'll buy someone coffee, I'll give someone one of those cigarettes from my car, or I'll pay for their dinner. I never, ever, like Leslie said, expect anything back, nor do I want it. Pass it on to the next newcomer. When you get yourself financially amended, pass it on to the next newcomer. Buy the next person a cup of coffee, buy the next person dinner at fellowship after the meeting. But the whole, can I borrow $100 till payday? No, not happening. Margaret.
Hi, my name's Margaret, and I'm an alcoholic. So I've got a couple of things. One is, you're right, Kim. As a retired financial advisor, one of the most satisfying things in my job was helping people get their financial lives back on track, especially if I knew they were in the program. And I've had the opportunity to do that a few times, and it's rewarding for them, for me, as just jobs, just as a payback, like you say, to the universe. The other thing is, it's kind of funny. I was out walking on the weekend, and that's where I have my best meditative talks and whatnot. But all of a sudden, it popped into my head from when I was like 16, working as a waitress in a restaurant, because I thought I was super honest, and I've cleaned up all my past, and everything is all good, and happy, wonderful, joyous, and free, whatever. And it just popped into my head that, hey, I used to serve coffee. Like, I got really good at serving coffee, not writing up a bill and pocketing the money. And that was my beer money. And I was like, whoa. And it just hit me out of nowhere. This is like a long time later. So it's really funny when, when I open my mind and, God drops little things in, or my higher power, or whatever. And so now there's a little payback that I'm going to do there. And I was like, wow. And, it's funny because I remember a customer kind of calling me on it one day. Like, I was 16 years old. But so you can tell that's a long time ago. But anyway, he's like, "Hey, where's my bill for my coffee?" And I was like, "Oh, you already wrote it up." And I just remember the whole long, you know, lie that I made up because I didn't want to get caught and have him go to my bosses. But yeah, so it's really interesting the layers that are unpeeled or peeled away. The longer I stay, the more is revealed. And there was there was three things that I wanted to share, but I guess those were the two main ones. But the biggest thing, yeah, like I say, as a retired financial advisor, the best thing is helping people get back on their feet. It's just a great feeling for everybody. Thank you for my sobriety.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's like the never ending story. Something new comes up. You're like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh man. All right. You know where else is really good? I've found really helpful people at the finance department at car dealerships. The lady that works at my car dealership, she knows credit reports inside and out and knows how to repair them. And like they offer free advice. Like so don't be scared to ask. That's the number one. But like your bank, that's their job. They have financial advisors there. That's what your $14.95 a month goes to. Use it. All right. I was going to say something else too, and I can't remember. It must be lost with Margaret's last thought. That'll come to me. All right, let's go on to the criminals. Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense, which might land us in jail if it were known to the authorities. We may be short in our accounts and unable to make good. We have already admitted this in confidence to another person, but we are sure we would be imprisoned or lose our job if it were known. Maybe it's only a petty offense, such as padding the expense account. Most of us have done that sort of thing. Maybe we are divorced and have remarried but haven't kept up the alimony to number one. She is indignant about it and has a warrant out for our arrest. That's a common form of trouble, too. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. We ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. So we'll keep going. Usually, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be the hasty and foolish martyr who would needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit. A man we know had remarried. Because of resentment and drinking, he had not paid alimony to his first wife. She was furious. She went to court and got an order for his arrest. He had commenced our way of life, had secured a position, and was getting his head above water. It would have been impressive heroics if he had walked up to the judge and said, "Here I am." We thought he ought to be willing to do that if necessary, but if he were in jail, he could provide nothing for either family. We suggested he write his first wife, admitting his faults and asking for forgiveness. He did, and also sent a small amount of money. He told her what he would try to do in the future. He said he was perfectly willing to go to jail if she insisted. Of course she did not, and the whole situation has long since been adjusted. So again, there is every scale on the scale that you could possibly imagine here. There might be the housewife who has stolen lipstick from the Target, all the way to the murderous mafia boss in Alcoholics Anonymous. We've got both ends of the scale and everything in between. The whole point with the criminal part is we want to make it right. So if you have an outstanding warrant, or if you have some sort of criminal offense that is being investigated, you want to do right with the authorities. Obviously, you want to get counsel on such things, both from God in meditation and also from a lawyer. Don't throw yourself on the sword. And what it says here in the book as well is if other people are involved. So if you committed murder with your best friend Joe, that's a really bad example. Best friend Bob, um, you're not going to go in and go, yeah, me and Bob murdered a guy last Saturday night. You can't implicate that guy without his consent, but you can, call your lawyer and have your lawyer help you navigate that field. Some of it might be minor. So if you work at a grocery store or you work at an office, I loved to steal office supplies. That was my jam. I am an office supply thief. You name it. I have label maker, everything. Oh yeah, I stole it all. I love office supplies. But what did I do? I admitted to my boss that I stole office supplies. My boss was not the owner of the company. I no longer worked there. He thanked me for the honesty and whatever, there was no amends to be made there. What do? I do backpack buddies in September. I go to Staples and I donate to Backpack Buddies so that I'm repaying the amends because I stole office supplies. So I buy pens and things for children who can't afford school supplies. There is always a way to make the amends. I wasn't about to go to jail for stealing office supplies. He was not going to call the police. I had to make it right, though. I'm looking at the room. Rooms of women typically don't have hard criminals with like major, but there's few in the crowd. You never know. But mostly with our gentlemen friends, they've had a lot of criminal activity and things that they are dealing with in the courts. We deal with it. And I have seen the most amazing outcomes. I've seen people who were sure that they were going to go to jail. Like, they were sure they were going to go to jail. They didn't go to jail. They've gotten probation. I've had friends who were housewives who had DWIs, and they, were able to repair that without strict conditions, without blowing devices in their car, without losing their license permanently. Amazing things have happened when you do the right thing in the criminal sense in Alcoholics Anonymous. Not to give you a scapegoat, but now is a really good time to set things straight because courts are online. So if you're scared of appearing before a judge in person, you can do it from the comfort of your home over the phone. Get it done. I mean, if not now, when, right? You can call up the courthouse and say, I need to take care of this. They're going to get you in touch with duty counsel. There's always a lawyer on standby, and you can do it all from the home. You can do it right on the phone and get it taken care of without even having to appear in court right now. So if you were ever having an excuse, there went them. We can make it right. Yeah, they have Zoom court too. There you go. I'm in trial right now with the estate, and it's all on telephone conference. Like, I don't even have to go to my lawyer's office to deal with that estate matter. So, I mean, if not now, when? If you're scared of actually going to court, call a lawyer. There are services there to help you. Again, there's lawyers that are members of Alcoholics Anonymous and love helping us out. I know one here in the local area, and he's really fantastic. So, criminal stuff. Anybody's got experiences. This is where I always get my socks knocked off by interesting stories. You guys are boring just like me, huh? Office supplies it is. Lois. You gotta unmute.
I was going to let Anne Marie go first, so I didn't seem so bad. Actually, this was a friend, a sponsee, and she wouldn't care if I told you about it, but she happened to have a suspended license. So she went to another state and she got a license. And then she came back here and she drove, and she's not a really good driver, so she got stopped. And when she got stopped, they weren't real happy with her out-of-state license. So she had to go to court, and she was furious about the police when I kept trying to tell her it was not their fault that she had an outside the state license. And she did go to court with a lawyer, and she ended up having what we have here in Pennsylvania is that interlock, so that you have to blow into a breathing device. So she had to have that for a year, and she actually, what I talked her into getting it all straightened out. She went to court, she paid the fine, she got the interlock, and now she's free of it. You know, she can drive without looking behind her, you know, if the police lights are on or anything. And actually, after this happened, we got stopped by the police, and the first thing out of her mouth was, "I'm sober for 10 years, and this is my sponsor," and we weren't we weren't drunk. And you know, they were understanding, because we had our great grandson in the back, and he was giving us a hard time, and she was sort of driving a little erratically, and I was not sitting in my seat right, and I guess the police were watching the whole thing from the back. But the thing is, she got it all straightened out so she could hold her head up high, and not be afraid of, you know, the police stopping us for some reason. But boy, she was really mad when it happened. And you know, it was definitely, you know, something she shouldn't have done in the first place, but she went ahead and did it. So it's consequences, you know,
Yeah.
that we have to pay sometimes.
Yeah. And you know, that first year of sobriety when you're driving and you hear the police sound, you're like, you're like, no, wait, I'm sober. That's always good too. Okay, so question in the chat is if we've ever done anything wrong, like underage drinking, speeding, etc., that we should go and tell ourselves. No, that's absolutely not what I'm saying. If you had minor infractions like that, the changed behavior is all you do. I'd be in there every day. I have a lead foot, and I like to drive fast to music. I try my hardest not to, but I sometimes speed. But no, I'm saying is, if you murdered somebody, or if you robbed a bank, armed robbery, and you know there's an open investigation where they're looking for a suspect and you're the suspect, go turn yourself in, but call a lawyer first and have him accompany you. You know, if it's something like, you know, women are more the white collar crime, so it would be like check fraud or embezzlement at work, or you know, stealing things from work, you know, stuff like that is more common for women. But, you know, if you were an armed robber or a murderer, you know, if you were a drug dealer and there was an open investigation on you for dealing drugs, you need to clean it up. If you were a drug dealer and the police were never on to you, just don't be a drug dealer anymore and make your amends the God way. It would be my best. Okay, Anne-Marie, blow Lois away.
I'm not going to blow anybody away. I'm Anne-Marie. I'm an alcoholic. I always thought I was the only one who stole office supplies. I feel much better. But I did drive, and I don't know. I just remembered it while you were talking about things, and I don't know what to do about it. I drove my car for 5 years without insurance.
Yeah.
And I almost got caught in the sense that when I finally did try to buy insurance, no one would sell me insurance because I hadn't been insured for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So I wasn't driving. I drove my father's car, which wasn't true, of course. But how do I clear that up? Universe again?
By always paying for your insurance going forward.
Yeah, something we really can't do anything about.
Yeah, there's some things that the changed behavior is the amends, right? And also being able to share our story to help other people. Because I'm sure there are people, maybe even in this group of 51, that currently don't have a valid driver's license and may or may not be driving with a valid driver's license. You know, these are things we've done. I've done it. I've driven without insurance. I got in a car accident without insurance, and then I decided to go buy it the hour after. You know, like, I had the money in the bank. I just didn't want to pay for the insurance.
I had my car vandalized in a parking garage, and I, without thinking, I called the police. And when they showed up, I realized, oh my God, they're going to ask me for my proof of insurance, and I don't have it.
Yeah.
So I was much younger then, and I was much thinner, and I had all this gorgeous hair.
Right.
So I sat in the police car, and he said, you know, I said, oh my God, I changed my purse this morning, and I don't have my documents with me. I'm just so discombobulated, and I got away with it.
Yeah.
Don't do that, girls. Don't do that.
Using our sex powers for selfish
There you
means.
go. There you go.
Yep. Yeah, so lots of them, it's the changed behavior, right? Like, I no longer steal little items in the store. I no longer steal office supplies. I work for myself now. I have to buy my own dang office supplies. There's a punishment in itself. Jenny D.
Unmute. Hi, thanks. I'm Jenny, alcoholic. Okay, I have a story. It was in my first step 5 and how I made the amends. And it was something I couldn't tell anybody about for years. I was so ashamed and so humiliated. Now I'm not, I tell anybody. But one of the things that I did in my first step, when I was in my drinking, and I'm not going to get into the whole why and what, but I was a person that loved to get revenge.
Oh, yeah.
And I needed to get revenge on a friend who had, I thought, harmed me. So what I did was you know those old gangster movies where they go and they cut little letters out of magazines and they make a threatening note? I did that. I know. So I get this. So I get this thing, and it was really bad. And I'm laughing now, but it really scared her and it really hurt her, which made me feel really good at the time. Until I got sober and realized, oh man, like what a thing to do. And I got look at Della, she's dying over there laughing. So anyway, so I send her this note. I stick it under the door where she worked. We worked in the same mall, and I went early and I stuck it under the door of her store. So I did not know, how am I going to make amends for this? Because it was probably 20 years later when it was time to make amends. And my sponsor said, well, this is one of the ones where you don't want to call her up and say, hey, you remember that note that just about killed you? That was me that said that. That's just going to bring up a terrible time in her life. And we had been really good friends, and we were still really good friends after, because she never knew it was me. In fact, it was me she came to for comfort after tell you, when I do my revenge, I was good at it. I was evil and good at it. So anyway, she said, you don't want to bring up that time. You don't want to bring up that time. So what I did was I tracked her down. I was on the coast. She lived somewhere up north. I tracked her down. And I sent her a big bouquet of flowers and a letter. And the letter just said how much I valued her friendship and how much we were such good friends and how much I loved her. She said, you made her feel really bad, make her feel really good. Don't remind her of that time. And that's what I did. But this story has a hilarious ending. Hilarious. When I finally got to the point where I could admit this to people, that I had made one of these little gangs. I mean, it took me forever. I'm chopping up magazines and oh my God. So when I finally got to the point, I shared it at first people I told it to outside of my step. I was the women in my step group. There was about 6 or 8 of us in the in-home step study group, and I shared it. Anyways, my next AA birthday, every one of those women, every card I opened, the message was all little bits of letters. Cut out a magazine. Happy birthday. And one did it for years afterwards. Happy birthday. That's my story.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's hilarious. Fern?
I'm Fern and I'm an alcoholic. It's really neat because one of my big amends on my one of my big resentments on my resentment list was to the AA program, and it just came to me just now. I had a big resentment against sponsees that kind of drained me, and then turned on me. And but what I just got just now is that I did drive drunk. I did drive drunk, and I hadn't even thought about this in the context of shame and guilt and all those feelings. But yes, I did drive drunk after work and threaten people's lives. But now it just occurred to me that when I was slaving away after these damn sponsees, that I was driving them down to Nanaimo to get their to go through their drunk driving thing to get their licenses back. I did that for 3 women, and yeah, spent my money, my gas money. Of course, most of them didn't pay, and all that. And it's funny, I just now got it that, oh my God, that is my amends for my drunk driving. I never got caught, but these other women did, and I got to help them. Anyway, thanks for my sobriety.
Thank you so much, Fern. Another really great way to make amends for drunk driving is to donate to Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And when you donate, you can actually let them know you're sober, and they appreciate it a lot. They appreciate that amends, and it's healing for them. So that's another really good creative way to make that amends for drunk driving. Erin K.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm an alcoholic. This is the first time I'm joining your group. I found your other group this week. I got sober in 2016, but I know I haven't completed all of my amends, and all these conversations and all these things you're talking about, I can relate to so badly. I was famous for saying, I know, all the time. When I was drinking, people, my dad in particular, would say, you can't drive without a license. I know. And then I would get caught. So one time after a DUI, I lost my license for a year. And 2 weeks before I was going to get it back, I lost it for 5 years because I didn't have insurance. Yeah, I was never paying for insurance, ever. It was too expensive. It's cutting into my drinking and everything else I want to do. So finally, after 5 years, when I got it back, I lost it again. Because 10 years prior, in a different state, I thought I had cleaned everything up with another incident, another DUI, and I didn't. And they had linked the states together. So 10 years after a DUI, when I thought everything was over with, I lost my license here again in Ohio. And I had to go through the whole 3-day weekend class. But looking back, like, all that stuff is just such a blessing in disguise. Because, for one, I ended up having to sell my car, and I couldn't drink and drive for, about 5 years. And then going to the DUI class, I actually learned what alcoholism actually was. I always said, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, but what it actually meant, and knowing that I'm always going to be an alcoholic and I'm never getting out of this, I got to learn that then. And I've gotten a sponsee in the past 4 years, and I've helped her get her license back. And she was just so more willing than I ever was when I first got sober. She let me keep her car in my driveway because she didn't have insurance. And I said, well, you probably shouldn't drive without insurance, thinking, man, I'm a hypocrite, but I'm trying to help this girl out. And she left her car at my house for like 3 months. It gave me her keys and everything until she got everything situated and straightened. And I never really thought about that is kind of an amends, I guess, too, helping somebody else not make the exact same mistakes that I had made. Mm-hmm. But, all that stuff is just a blessing in disguise because, I drank and drove plenty of times out of my control. And, what I don't know how to do, which I kind of wanted to talk because I kind of wanted to ask you, is I did really stupid things when I was drinking, like push someone's motorcycle over for no reason when I was leaving a bar, or kicking in a window. Because one time I lost my phone and I tracked it on someone else's phone, and I was so drunk and so mad, and I thought they went into this apartment complex and I kicked out the window. And so stuff like that, you know, I'm always trying to pay it forward and everything, but I don't think I have a specific amends to the just shitty, for no reason, angry things that I did, just out of nothing. I didn't even know who these people were.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah. So if you don't know,
if anyone has
I'm
any
muted.
comment on that, I guess I will listen.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
how I
but
got
I-
muted. But yeah, so if those ones, like if you know where the property is, like if you know what building you kicked the building in, you could actually show up with an envelope and give them like a $200 donation. Say, you know what? A few years ago, I broke your window. I didn't know it cost you an insurance deductible. Here's the money. If you don't know who it is or whose bike it was, then that's all those pay it back to the universes. I'm going to be constantly paying shit back probably till the day that I die. It's just, you know, there's so many that we just keep doing the next right thing. Random acts of kindness is the way to make it up to the universe. But like, so I noticed taking my groceries out of the car yesterday, my insurance for my car is renewed March 2021. And when I go in March 2021, the same thing that will happen that happened last March when I went in. For the first time in my life, and I'm 42 years old, the insurance lady is like, you want to renew for another year? Yes. Same checking account? Yes. Same address? Yes. Here you go. Never in 42 years had that happened. The bank account would be different, the address would be different, or I wouldn't be getting 12 months paid. It would be something weird. So this coming March, it'll be 2 full years. Haven't missed a payment when it comes out of my account. I haven't moved, you know? And for me, I'm like, whoa, and she's looking at me like, lady, 100 people come in every day and do that. I'm like, yeah, right? It's like, welcome to the real world, Kim. You're a big girl now. So anybody else? We got 5 minutes left. I'm not going to read anything. MJ, do you want to go? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm MJ. I'm an alcoholic. I just thought of something. So I had quite a few people, not quite a few, but a few people on my list that I didn't know their last names way back 30 years ago, you know, and it always bothered me that I couldn't make amends to them because I knew the specific behaviors that I had done with these people. And I tried a lot, you know, tried to find them on Facebook and all of that, but I couldn't remember their last names, a lot of them. So there was a speaker once speaking, I forget what his name was, and he addressed it in this way. He said, he wrote a letter to the person. He knew their first name, but didn't know their last name, didn't know where they lived. Wrote a letter to the person and put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, stuck it in the mail. And so that's what I did. There was one particular girl, her name was Glenda. She was my roommate, and I had slept with her boyfriend, and I wanted to make amends for that. So I wrote a letter to her and put the name Glenda on the front of the envelope and a stamp and stuck it in the mailbox. And it felt so good because it, you know, of all the amends I needed to make, those are the ones that were still bugging me. So I had a few more, and I did the same thing with all of them. And so that's how I resolved that for myself. Anyways, thanks.
Thanks so much. I do something similar where I share about it. So it's like me, almost a weird random ninth step in a share, and I'll be like, you know, I had this friend, and somehow it just cleanses me to get it out. So however it makes you feel at right. I always just stay willing because I've had some weird shit happen where people have cropped up that I thought, like the one lady, I just knew physically what she looked like and that she was my neighbor, and I had ripped her off for babysitting. And wouldn't you know, her daughter became friends with my daughter on Facebook, and she said, "Did your mom used to get my mom to babysit and live here?" And she's like, "Yeah." So I was able to find the mom. Like, literally, I couldn't even tell you what letter her name started with. I just knew she was the neighbor lady that would babysit my kids that I ripped off. And then my daughter ended up going to nursing school and knowing her daughter. Like, it was weird. And I was like, okay. I'm like, "Do you know how to get a hold of your mom?" She was like, "Yeah." I'm like, okay. Like, it has this weird way of happening. All right, ladies, let's close with the Serenity Prayer.